Hello, everyone. This is Trudee with Yoga Cooler Project, and I'm doing a little, what should we call it? With tea with Ida today. And Ida is a emotional body worker. She does she uses a modality called the body code. She does a lot of energy clearing. I've had her work on me, and it's been so helpful. And we can maybe get into that, my sessions with her a little bit later. Anyway, here she is, Ida Sapp. Ida.
Hi.
Hi. So I wanted to do a little recording with you. Maybe have you give us a little bit of advice on the pandemic that's happening right now and how we can emotionally work through that. And can you just start by giving us a short description of what you do and how you help people?
Okay. I identify and release unprocessed emotional energies that keeps people stuck in an area. So oftentimes it's a physical thing where people have tried different modalities and they've seen physicians and naturopaths and then still can't make progress. And there's often then an underlying emotional issue. So I identify that and with muscle testing and using intuition and then help them release it. And yeah, it can pertain to physical stuff and then relational stuff, emotional issues, clarity around career. I think a lot of times we have these unprocessed things from our childhood or earlier in our life, or sometimes even inherited, that keeps us stuck in a place that no matter how much work we put in, we seem to be spinning our wheels. And this kind of energy work is just something that can push you forward.
Yeah, well, from my experience with you, I'm doing all of this release work on my own. I'm doing yoga every day, owning the yoga studio. I mean, I'm up there all the time. I'm doing meditation. I do breathing exercise. They're the 8 limbs of yoga, and I'm working with all of those. Yet I felt, and as the years go by, I felt a little bit more that there's something energetically, something that's still not there, something that's not quite working, not quite opening up, like I'm stuck.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, that word stuck is a perfect way to describe the feeling. I mean, life isn't terrible, things are going fine, but there's a stuckness about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I've had 6 sessions with you, and after every single one, there was this release of, I felt a little less stuck, a little less stuck. And so this is one reason why I wanted to interview you today and get you out there to the public so you can help other people.
Yeah.
So, but briefly, I know that your childhood was a little bit unique, and your young adult phase was a little bit unique. But what drew you to this work, do you feel?
So yeah, I was a little bit mystically inclined as a child. I'm South African, so I grew up under the previous regime and in the state church. So that was kind of the only container I had for experiencing and expressing that mystical desire. And then in my late teens, I became a lot more religious and was really drawn to the idea of a relationship with God, which is the closest I could get to the idea of it being connected to the whole universe. Um, and I got so into it that I actually ended up as a missionary in rural China for 14 years doing community development. Um, and then my husband and I started deconstructing our way of thinking and our belief system during that time. And I think with being overseas and having gone through the experience of growing up or coming of age really in South Africa during that time of change, I was almost primed for being more open-minded about things that I didn't quite understand. And then my daughter was really sick and we had blown through all of our savings, going from pediatrician to allergist to dermatologist to naturopaths and homeopaths, and we just could not find help for her, and she was getting sicker and sicker. And then with all the background of having deconstructed things and then also being desperate, we finally heard of somebody who was doing energy work. And we went to him, and his modality was, at that time, he pressed on her belly and rubbed over her head. And within 2 days, she was markedly better. And within 10 days, she was completely healed. So that really made me a lot more interested in this weird thing that I was desperate enough to try. And then I was in the process of really changing how I looked at the world and understanding that there's more than one way of going about things. And even things I didn't understand held a lot more for me than I would have expected. And and then I started pursuing energy work and found a modality that really resonated with me, and it was the body code. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. I've had this life that we're in, and it's pretty interesting. I've had some people, I do Reiki, and I've had some people say to me, well, how do I know it's not the placebo effect? And I'm like, well, let's hope it is. I mean, the placebo effect is a really wonderful thing. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not to say, I mean, I think it's a really good idea when you have a sick child like you had, you went to every kind of doctor, different specialists. That's a really good thing. Do that for sure.
Yeah.
But why not just try everything that there possibly could be out there?
Yeah.
Which kind of leads me to my next question. Now, it would make sense that someone like me, I do yoga and meditation and,
Right.
woo, someone like me would naturally be drawn to someone like you, an energy worker, right? But my guess is, and I haven't asked you this question, I would imagine that you do have people from all walks of life. You probably have businessmen, you might even have physicians, but different people. What kind of different people do you have?
Yeah, I actually do have people from all different. I actually have had a physician as a client, and somebody who is trained as a counselor, and business people. It's it just depends on what need people have. Sometimes people come to me because they are in the same boat as what we were. They have tried everything. They've done all the hardcore diets, and their autoimmune issue is still not getting better, or they've done all the supplements and seen all the specialists, and their chronic pain is still debilitating their life. Or people going through transition, like one businessman I was working with was going through a major life transition and just needed to have more clarity around the situation and not be bogged down by the emotionality of the thing. And of course, he's still experiencing emotions and stuff, but it helped him not rehash the same narrative from his childhood and his young adult life and later. It kind of breaks you free from the stories you've had before. So then I've worked with people around career clarity and relationship issues and changing family culture. Really, it really comes down to helping you change the narrative of your life, even if it is around a physical issue, because I've worked with a lot of physical issues that would resolve. You'd be surprised how much of our physical stuff has an emotional undercurrent. And then obviously something like anxiety or sleeplessness or depression is obviously emotional, but that it can sometimes be the thing that just started 4 weeks ago had its root in your childhood. It's just that now it's finally triggered by something. So people come to me from different backgrounds. And children, I've worked with quite a few children as well. And people that is dealing with debilitating health issues or end of life issues. Yeah.
Cool.
And people mostly find me through referrals. Yeah.
Right. So I'm always curious about the process of something like this. Like we know how a psychiatrist works. You go into their office. They talk to you and uncover things that maybe you'd forgotten. But
Yeah.
Can you explain more of the process of how you start this? What do you know about the client? How does the process go?
Yeah, some of my clients I know nothing about. So, which I actually like. because it feels like I can go in with a clean slate. I don't second guess myself. I don't go, oh, that's just because I know this about them. I like working with people that I don't hardly know. But I like, when I start off a session, I really like to kind of have a direction that I'm going with. Obviously, people come to me and they say, I have this issue that I want to work on, physical issue, or I need career clarity, or dealing with anxiety. But I'd like to get a picture, if you will, whether you call it a download or intuitive guidance, just a bit of direction that's separate from them, that I can say, okay, this is either what they need to be aligned with, or this is the thing that we need to change the narrative or their experience, how it actually is underneath the symptoms or the situation. And then I use muscle testing. So I use my hands and the ring and ring method. I think most people, if they've gone to a chiropractor, they've used muscle testing. A lot of naturopaths use it. And then I actually just rub over my governing meridian to release an energy. Sometimes it's 3 times, sometimes it's more, depending on the energy. And sometimes I just use a prayer or a mantra. It just depends on the situation and what I feel is necessary. I think the most important part is, anyway, the focus and the intention behind it. And I have actually, I work with people on Zoom, and then I work with people a lot like how I did with you, which is that I do the session without the client being present or being with me on Zoom, and then follow up either in, I always send the notes, but follow up either in a voice message or a call. And then I've had clients that I didn't even send their notes. Like some older clients are like, I don't really care. I just am desperate. And I don't send the notes to them, and they still have amazing progress. So that kind of, because in the beginning I was also like, is it just I find these things and then they process it emotionally, and that by knowing the thing you kind of bring it to the surface. But I really think that there seems to be a lot to it.
Yeah, from my experience with you, and it's just my experience, and I would assume that everyone's experience is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
You would you would say, okay, I'm going to do a session on you. Most likely tomorrow, could be the next day, and just be aware that I'm going to do that. And then, and I tend to be kind of more of a, well, they call it a vata in Ayurveda, so
Yeah.
I'm kind of air and ether anyway.
Yeah.
And invariably, there would be this energy shift in me, and typically for me, it felt like a release, like I would have to go sit down on my couch and
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, whoa, and then sure enough, later on, all of a sudden you'd start sending me the tapes, and I would look at the time, or we would connect, and you would say, I did it at this time. And I'm like, well, this is what I was experiencing at that time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for me, for the most part, it was a really, it felt positive. I felt the release. But there were a few times where it's like didn't want to release, and it was like fighting me a little bit, or there was just this more stuckness before it started dissolving. And then what I also liked about your follow-up was that you would send like affirmations for me to work on. Yeah, and you would also send meditations, real easy stuff, nothing that was complicated that would take up my whole day, but just little things that I could do periodically during the day if I started to feel that stuck feeling again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I thought that was really helpful for me. Is that something that you do with all of your clients, or?
Most of my clients, even the ones, especially I do shadow work as well, which is basically mapping your deepest core wounds and the things out of which you started creating your ego structure, and then through that process kind of figure out what is the parts of you that you haven't integrated. And with that as well, I've been doing a lot more meditations and helping people kind of solidify the thing that they are experiencing, because the energy release is one thing. It's like when a ship is anchored in the harbor, like I cut the rope that keeps you stuck on that anchor. you still have to move yourself out. And those meditations and those practices really help you kind of give you a space where you can create a new narrative, because we all have these stories, and I think, like you've seen in your sessions, there would be negative core beliefs or like a program or something that gets identified, and it becomes like a story. And then these exercises help you change that story. I mean, the energy that gets released kind of gives you a new possibility. Like, it's like fallow ground, but now you have to like plant it. I think we often have this idea that emotions are negative or positive, and to me they are every emotion belongs. They're just a message or a messenger that gives you a message, and we need to figure out, okay, what is it that I'm feeling? We need to honor what we're feeling without judgment, and then figure out, what is it saying to me? Why am I feeling this? And then, is there an appropriate action for me to take? But if you are stuck in a narrative or in the energy of a thing, it's really hard to hear that message sometimes. And this really helps with kind of releasing that narrative and moving you forward to a place where you can hear the message and take appropriate action that's beneficial to you. That's also why, like with affirmations, I've done affirmations in the past, and it's like, it just doesn't land. So that's why the affirmations that I give to you, they're custom affirmations that came specifically out of the session that your subconscious is ready for. And where I've like cleared the ground that there were negative core beliefs that would have prevented those from really being helpful to you. So I've cleared those away, and then the affirmations can kind of take a hold and become your new story.
Yeah, I really liked mine. I think they were very helpful in that you're talking about the narrative that we create. And I think it starts really early in our
Yeah.
as we're growing up. There's this narrative, and it could be something like, it's always my fault.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. And then you perceive the world, and you see everything that happens with that narrative.
Yeah.
And over time, I just, that's all you're seeing. And so all of the emotions that come in that we look at as being either good or bad start to fit in with that narrative, and they become more heavy and heavy and heavy. Yeah. And I liked what you said about the emotions. Yes. I like to take whatever emotion I'm feeling. And for me, I usually feel something in the body first, like in my stomach. Maybe I've got a sick stomach feeling. And so I like to stop and go, okay, what are you trying to tell me? Is there a message here? Because I feel like the body's always talking to you. And so anyway, you've helped me out a lot, and I really appreciate it. So I
love working with you.
I want to pass this on to as many people as possible. But anyway, so I think, one of my final questions with you, Ida, is, what kind of advice do you feel like you can give to people out here in the world that are, we're all kind of in the same boat. We're experiencing this pandemic. There's a lot of unknown. Will we get the virus? How will it affect us if we do? What about my bank account? It's dwindling. I've got to pay my rent or my mortgage. I don't have a job. What is my next, where do I go next?
Yeah, I think, let me start at the practical ones. Like, it seems to be consensus now among the experts that most of us will get this virus, or most of us will be exposed to it. So the first thing I think that will be helpful for all of us is to take care of our immune systems and our health. And so if I would do a session, I would give people practical advice. It's normally a little bit more tailor-made, because it's something that their subconscious would bring up if I work on a physical thing. But I think the most important thing to me right now is definitely sleep. And that can be easier said than done if you are worried about, my kids are not, their education is falling behind, and I haven't worked in a month, and what if we get sick, or I have a loved one with an autoimmune disease or a heart problem. So I think, so sleep is important, as I think to do the practices you can that will help you maximize your sleep. And simple ways that are not emotional right now is see the sunrise, or close soon enough after sunrise, because that's kind of when your circadian rhythm is like set, is with the sunrise. We have melanopsin receptors in our eyes that codes almost our circadian rhythm in every cell in our bodies, and it influences so many processes. But sleep is obviously really important, and it really influences your immune system. It's light and the immune system interact so much. So to get light in the morning, and then if you can, to see the sunrise and the sunset, and it doesn't matter if it's cloudy or not. The blue and yellow light, I think, in it is how it's supposed to be to help you sleep better that night, regardless of if it's sunny or not. But then also to not have bright lights after sunset, so that you can sleep better and have better quality sleep. And that's really important. And it's so contrary to our culture, especially now. Everybody is like, Netflix until 2:00. Probably not the best time to binge watch Netflix at night. I mean, if you're going to do it before sunset, or not very much after sunset. There's some data that shows that blue light can be offset by red light therapy. So sunlight during the day helps if you use red lights. But that's all just about maximizing sleep, which would be really important. And then, breath work, meditation, mindfulness is really important. And that brings me to, if you feel a thing, be okay with it, accept it. There's a lot of talk in the spiritual or self-development world now about, it kind of translates to be better. And I think to just be okay with where you're at. Like, if you feel despondent, and if you feel hopeless, or if you feel anxious, to be okay with it and to honor that emotion. And then let that speak to you. Why is it that you feel that way? And to then say, I have no money in my bank account, or, to honor where you're at. And then once you've done that, you probably a lot more clarity in how to act on that. But with that, I would say, to get the support system you can. I mean, Zoom is about for most of us, Zoom or phones are available. Definitely in the first world, right? Like in America, most of us have that available, and you can catch up with people. I've had amazing conversations in the past few weeks with people I haven't actually seen in a while. It was the first time I saw them face to face, and not just on WhatsApp or on the phone. And I realized, well, we can do this all the time, but it was the first time that we actually made a point of doing that. And I think that, especially if you live alone now, that's really important, to have that virtual connection with other people. And then, food is important. Now it's probably not the best time to eat a pint of ice cream, even if you are really anxious. I mean, most of us want to, but wait for a while and move, and then I think also one thing that I've really been giving myself space for is to seek the things that give me joy and pleasure, and to sometimes prefer that over the thing I'm supposed to do. Like, if I feel like I don't have it in me to meditate today, but I can go sit in the sun, and I love how it makes me feel. It makes me feel connected to nature and the whole, then do that. But
yes, absolutely. And if you don't feel like, for example, doing yoga poses, go for a walk. That's your yoga today. Or maybe if you play piano,
oh yeah,
piano, that's your yoga.
Yeah.
Piano playing today is your yoga.
Well, we have such a purity culture, so it's so all or nothing, and you have to be a hardcore
black or white, right? It's like
nothing. I feel like now is the time of good enough. Like, okay, even if it comes to like diet, instead of eating a whole pint of ice cream, eat half of it. Like, do good enough, like the best you can, and encourage yourself. I mean, like, didn't eat the whole thing. I think we are not very kind to ourselves. Now's the time to be kind to yourself.
Well, I'm really excited because I'm going to eat that half a pint ice cream tonight. Looking forward to it. Well, thank you, Ida, so much for taking the time out of your busy day. And if people want to contact you to get a session, where do they go?
I have a website. It's Ida Sapp. So it's IDASAPP.com. And then I am on Facebook. It's Ida Sapp Coaching. So how you would say Ida Sapp Coaching. And then I'm on Instagram. Again, IDASAPP. Yeah. So you can follow me on those platforms or go to my website and book a session. I do free consultations if people want to figure out what would be the best way to proceed.
Perfect. And I'll also go ahead and put this video up on the Yoga Kula Project website. So if you forget where to go to the website yogakulaproject.com. We also have Yoga Kula Project Instagram, and this will be uploaded to our YouTube channel.
Perfect.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording, but hopefully, Ida, we can talk for a little bit after this. So hang on.
Thank you so much, Trudee.
Thanks.